Morning, everybody. So, in this video, we're going to talk about customer service and playing the game. So, I know we talked about customer service in the past, and we'll review it again in this video because it's part of playing the game. Now, we all know there are bad customers, but the universal rule is customer is always right, that kind of thing. He who has the gold makes the rules. So the customer has the goal in that area, try to do the best they can. So I had an experience here recently where I rejected a load. So customer service can't always smooth, but you try. Okay, impact. Um, you know, it's just easier. I found over the years that I've been driving truck. Now I've been driving truck for 11 years. It's just easier if you just give people respect. And I don't know if they deserve it or not. It's not it's not a reflection on them. I think it's more a reflection on you. That don't worry whether they deserve it or not. It's just your willingness to show respect. And I always say yes sir and yes ma'am. I always do it. It's not because I'm from the South and I believe that's the way you should talk to people. It's because it just makes things easier. It's not that I think they deserve respect. I just think it makes things easier. If you go to the shipping receiving office and someone's very nasty, you just say yes sir, yes ma'am. What your goal is to just get in and get out without any hassle or very little hassle. So would it hurt you to say yes sir or yes ma'am if that makes it easier? um, I I I've tried it a million different combinations of how to deal with difficult people, and I just come back to just a standard yes sir, yes ma'am. Just do that. You gotta have a little bit of humility. Even if you are somewhat wealthy, you still gotta be a little have a little bit of humility, treat each other as human beings, and you recognize that the person has a job to do. They're there to make a living just like you are. They may be 20 years younger than I am, 30 years younger than I am, but I'll still call them yes sir or yes ma'am. It just makes things a whole lot easier. And this is kind of like playing the game. It's like I don't really care. I'm only going to talk to the person for 5 minutes. I don't want any difficulty at all. So it doesn't hurt me to give respect and say yes sir, yes ma'am. And I say thank you all the time, all throughout the day. So throughout the day, on a typical day, I'll say yes sir, yes ma'am, probably about 10 times a day, every single day. And I'll say thank you, just as many times. And I get through the day very easily without much difficulty or attitude from anybody. And if you're talking to a state trooper, you better say sir, yes, no. If you want to get through that, without much trouble, you better show respect to that person. Um, but even with mechanics, now they're good mechanics and they're bad mechanics, but mechanic is working on my truck. I always show respect for the mechanic, always. Yeah, I want them to know how much I appreciate them looking at my truck, so that I get back on the road safely. I'm ready to go. I'm not going to have any more problems, and it's just gratitude. That mechanic could be 25 years old. I'll still call him sir. Because he's doing me a service. And I'll thank him for his time and his efforts. It's easy to get in the hang of this at first, because I'm in my 50s, and to call someone in their 20s sir is kind of, it's seemingly ridiculous, but you know, it's just good relations. It's good people skills. You know, um, Especially like if you're in a truck stop and the lady behind the counter, I always show them tremendous respect. I always say yes, ma'am, or yes, sir, and thank you. Because they're dealing with thousands of people every day, and they're probably not making a ton of money, and they're working very hard, so you got to respect the other people who are working, you know, uh, they're working for, typically low wage, and they're working extremely hard. We think truck drivers, we're working for low wage and we're working very hard. You know, we should all treat each other with the most respect as other working people. It's like, there may be, people that you don't respect in the office, but you should respect other people who are working. you know, you know, they're sweating in 100-degree temperatures just like you. So, you think you got it bad. You should see what other people are doing to make a living, and they deserve a tremendous amount of respect. Even my asset manager or dispatchers and people at corporate and contractor relations, I just got in the habit of calling them yes ma'am and yes sir, I mean, they really are the customer. I mean, you're the owner or operator. Your customer isn't a shipper or receiver. Your customer is really the carrier. So you should respect your customers. I mean, they're the ones paying you for your service. Um, when you go pick up a load, that's your customer's customer. It's not really your customer. It's not your primary customer. It's kind of like your secondary customer. Your primary customer is a carrier. So when you're talking to your carrier, you should respect your customer. They're the one paying you. So you should get in the habit of just saying ridiculous. I never do that. Well, this is playing a game. We talk about all the things that you have to do to be successful in playing the game. This is playing the game. You want to win the game, you got to play the game. Part of the game is you give respect. Even people that are disrespectful to you, or you don't think they deserve respect, and the habit becomes second nature. It's like I always say that regardless of who I'm dealing with, I think psychology comes into play here too. You know, um, if you give a positive response like yes sir, I think that registers in that person's brain in a positive way. If you don't show respect and you're like, oh yeah, okay, whatever, that's going to create a negative impact on that person. And you're going to find that person's going to become increasingly more difficult. Why would you want to make it more difficult on yourself? I mean, if you don't show respect, the other person's not going to show respect, and you're gonna have a really difficult interaction with that person. And if you're on their property, they have the upper hand. So you depend on all these people to get your business running smoothly. You depend on that mechanic. You depend on shippers and receivers to get you in and out quickly. You don't want any complications. You don't want any attitude, as little as you can. And one way to try to make this smooth is just show respect. That's all. Just show respect. It's playing the game. You know, you might say, well, you'll never do it, but this is how you win. This is how you win the day. It's like, how do you win in trucking? This is one of the ways. It's playing the game, and this is playing the game at a very high level, because you're taking customer service, customer, and the load was overweight, and the customer, what's your problem? And I called Crete and reviewed it with the asset manager, and they talked to customer service and this, that, and the other. I documented everything. I put it in the PeopleNet, and at the end of the day, I dropped the trailer at the terminal. Guy that wasn't going to haul it was overweight. Now, was I disrespectful to the customer? No. You know, I, I said yes, sir, yes, ma'am, the whole time I was there. I said thank you know, every time I talked to someone. And I still got treated like crap, you know, but that happens, you know. That's not that's not a reflection on you. Still treating you like garbage. But most of the time, I would say, you know, that's the rare exception. You know, 99 out of 100 times, your positive, you know, experience showing them respect, that they make it easier for you to get that rework done and get back on the road. Now, let's flip the script. Let's say you went in there with an attitude, showed no respect, you left, and then you have to come back to get reway. Guess what? They're not going to be so cooperative. You know, you don't want to hurt yourself in your own business because you're not willing to show respect. Even if it's just playing the game, just say thank you, show a little bit of humility, and you'll win that day. All right.